Okay, good morning. Okay, I think, oh my God, like right on time, like 11 o'clock, right on time, even with all the little mishaps. Okay, um, this is good. This is exciting because what I have been finding is going directly live and then downloading the link. I was losing the captions. And so this morning, by figuring out the Zoom and streaming it into the Facebook group, I'm crossing my fingers that the captions will show up on my recording for Zoom. Um, from a replay perspective, I need to quiet my phone so I don't hear all my notifications. Um, so I think fingers crossed, fingers crossed. So I don't know, maybe we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Okay. Well, as usual, we're just going to go with the flow, or we're going to, you know, adaptability, right? That's what we're talking about, is being able to adapt during times of change. And so this morning, that's what we're talking about, is how do we stay competitive? And I know a lot of us small business owners are like, oh, I don't like the word competitive. Like, we want to be collaborative and we want to be, supporting each other. And, it's the kumbaya approach. And I agree, right? Collaboration over competition. But there's still an element of business that has to get done. And that includes knowing who you're up against and how you can kind of just squeak ahead of them when it comes to somebody making the decision about who do I want to work for or with, or who do I want to buy products from or hire to do a certain service for me, right? So it's that really comes down to knowing how to be adaptable. And um, And so, yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. Is we've talked about branding principles over the last several weeks, and just our brand story and our voice. And I thought this week we've talked about what does that avatar look like in the lunch and learn at the beginning of the month. And this is part of that, right? Knowing who you're talking to, knowing where they are, where they quote unquote live online. How do you speak to them? How do you speak with them? And that's part of that competitive edge, right? Like, how are you going to stay above and in front of somebody else? And it's also, before we kind of get into the nit and gritty, right, of the topics of leveraging technology and the solutions and being innovative and customer relations, we need to start with our mindset. We need to start with understanding what is it that we are looking at and why we're looking at it, and what are our options. And, to begin, as humans, we are emotional beings. That means we are going to feel an emotion. We're going to learn and experience through our emotions. And we have to be able to give ourselves that grace period when change happens unexpectedly, right? And it does. Either we lose a job, or we lose a spouse, or our house, horrible things like our house burns out. Like, change happens, right? And sometimes we're aware of it, and good morning, Maria, and sometimes we're not, right? Like, sometimes we can kind of preempt the change. We can see things happening and percolating down, which means I'm going to get ready for the change. I'm not going to be caught off guard. How can I be ready for what's coming? Right. And this morning when I was thinking about it, right? So Rubik's Cube, look, I got to find the sweet spot for the camera. And this is what happens. So maybe I have to hold it in front of me. There we go. Oh, hold it in front of my face. Good, bad, indifferent, right? So it's like when we have a Rubik's Cube. This is my son's. I kind of took it from his bedroom. He doesn't know. So, right. So you can see, right, from one perspective, everything is hunky dory. And then another, it's different. It's different again. It's different again. Right. And so we have all these different sides, and this is like our perspective. So for our business to be competitive, we have to be looking from different perspectives. Because while we are able to adapt and change, and that's one of the key things when I'm working with clients, is we're always looking what do we need to adapt and adopt, or not, right? Because change happens, good, bad, or indifferent. So we have to be ready for it. And by having strategies in place or solutions in place, or always working towards developing our business, that when an unexpected change happens, that isn't necessarily in the beginning what we think is a good change, we can give ourselves that time to grieve the change, right? Because change is change. And there is a grieving process in there, even good change. Even when all of a sudden, we've wanted this contract, whether it be a client or a job or whatever that might look like, or we wanted this house and it finally came on the market and we got that house or the car, whatever that looks like. There's change and there's an emotional process that we go through. So by allowing ourselves from our business mind to say, I'm going to start looking at how can I be ready for change? Doesn't mean you know exactly what's going to happen, but you're ready for it because you're constantly changing your perspective, looking at different situations from different sides. You can then allow yourself the time to sit back and feel the change. Remember, several weeks ago, we talked about feeling our value versus knowing our value. It's the same thing. We need to feel the change. We can't just assume, okay, change is here and I'm just going to take these steps, right? And we kind of go in robotic mode. We want to make sure as emotional beings, we feel the change. So that way we can process it and we can truly move through it and move beyond it and continue to thrive and succeed, right? So your mindset is going to be important when you go into thinking about the 3 topics we're going to talk about today. So when you think of the word competition, what comes to mind? And so I'm watching on my phone for comments. And so far, they've been coming up pretty quickly. So when you think competition, what do you think? Is it like, oh, I don't want competition? Like, are we afraid of competition? Oh, look, I keep putting my hand up. Right? So thinking about how we feel about change, that's the first piece. How we feel about competition, that's the next piece, because they go together. Afraid, no. Aware, yes. Yeah. So exactly, Sue, right? We want to acknowledge the fact that our emotions are valid. It's okay for us to be afraid of change. Right? Change is the one constant thing we can count on our lives, right? That and taxes, right? So we want to make sure that we start to not desensitize ourselves. Look, I got to change my necklace. It's bugging me. But we want to have that word change and the word competition to not be scary for us, but to be something that we can be excited about, but still feel, right? So you are loving the job you're in, you're doing a great job, and then all of a sudden something happens that's out of your control, and your boss comes along and says, we love you, but we can't afford you, kind of thing, right? That's necessarily not a good thing. So we have to give ourselves that time to feel the disappointment, feel the letdown, feel the loss. So then we can go, okay, what's the silver lining? Where do we get to? Right? When we're talking about it, accepting competition, embracing competition. Absolutely, Maria, right? So when we know that there's going to be competition, and there always is, knowing how to stay one step ahead is the key. And this is part of the unseen work, right? So when you always see, like that iceberg meme where it's, like the tip of the iceberg and everybody sees the success, but they don't see the bottom of the iceberg. And that's where all the hard work is. This is one of those hidden pieces. Absolutely, right? To differentiate ourselves is part of staying ahead of our competition, right? So how do we do that? We want to look at how are we leveraging technology? How are we automating things that not necessarily we have to do and have our hands on all the time, right? We want to be looking at creative solutions. How do we stay innovative, right? Said, do it afraid. That is something that I have always been doing. Yeah. So be afraid, but do it anyways. Absolutely. Right. And what does that blend into? That blends into your confidence, right? Be confident in your skill set. Like, I'm going to do this, right? Like, I'm going to tell you, like, I was super nervous doing this whole Zoom through Facebook Live thing. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I'm just going to roll with it. And, just kind of really kind of knowing where your comfort zone is and pushing yourself out of that comfort zone, right? And then the other piece is really that customer relation piece. Those are the three things that I want us to kind of dive into today about how do we stay competitive when we have the right mindset. So that way, when change does happen, we can accept it easier and we can adapt easier and maybe even quicker than we thought, right? So, and this is what allows us to move out of being in survival mode and really step into thriving and flourishing, right? So it also will allow us a clarity of purpose. And so I kind of want to, back up. When I was setting this up and I was trying to get the closed caption, the captioning on, there's a reason, right? So one of the principles for the Women's Business Resource Community is accessibility, right? I want all of you to have the same access to coaching and the tools and the resources at a really budget-friendly pricing so it's accessible. Well, guess what piece I figured out this weekend that I was not filtering through the accessibility piece. And that is those that might have a hearing impairment. Oh, and this is why, right? So my sister's watching. So my sister and I had this conversation and the closed captions weren't working on all the past. And so it was really frustrating. And for me, it became a priority that for this live stream, captions had to be in place because that is one of my main three brand principles. And if I can't have captions available, then I'm not in alignment. I'm not working in alignment. I'm not working towards that. So again, here we are talking about staying competitive, staying adaptable, working outside your comfort zone and saying to yourself, what I got to do? I'm going to be afraid and I'm going to do it anyways, right? Just like Maria said. So, technology can be our friend and foe. So when you think of all the things in your business right now, and we're looking at that under that water level of the iceberg, what part of technology does technology play? Right? You want it to be supportive. So you want it, the automation has to what? Has to improve what for you? If it's going to work and help you keep that edge. Technology has to allow you to be efficient. If it's causing more work, and that was my concern with this morning, right? Like, how much more work am I going to have to do to stay in alignment? Yeah, right. So Maria's asking, how do we add captions on our content and videos? It's a setting. I'm not trying to sound mean because I was surprised. It was a setting that I didn't click on and save. Right? So here I am, my face is going red. You may not be able, because it's embarrassing, like how simple of a solution, right? so so you might have to dive into your settings, Maria, whether it be on Facebook or Zoom or whatever live streaming systems you're using, right? Yeah. So that right, yeah, it is. Right. But again, when you're looking at staying adaptable, you've kind of got to get uncomfortable. You've got to be able to say, oh, that was like whatever. I don't want to say it online, but you know what I mean? Like that was just a moment. So, right. So we want our technology to improve our efficiency because when we're talking about launching a business or scaling a business, we have to be efficient. Because if we're not efficient, what ends up happening? We start spinning our wheels. We start spending too much time on things that are unnecessary. And what we learned in a previous live stream was what? Everything is either a time investment or a money investment, but there is an investment. So if you are not efficient, if the technology you want to use within your business is not going to allow you to be efficient, then you're investing time unnecessarily, which means you're not going to be able to scale because it's taking away from other activities that you might need to be doing, right? Um, so, right, so that's one of the things. So when you're looking at leveraging technology, right, you have to be able to review what's important, what you can get done, and is the technology, the app, the plugin, the interaction between the two different systems, if it's working, if it's what you need, and you can find the solution and get it implemented, then you're going to save time, which is going to save you money, which is going to allow you less stress to improve the other two pieces we're about to talk about, right? So sometimes when we start looking at automations, the upfront cost is time because what? We are in a learning curve. We are learning the systems, right? So this morning, right before I went up and had my shower, I spent 45 minutes going through YouTube videos that will teach me the exact steps that were super simple, right? Like some of them, they get off in their own language, because we talk, every business has its own language, right? So I'm not talking actual like cultural languages. I'm talking like business language, right? Like I talk a certain language, you talk a certain language. So I had to find the one that could speak to me for me to understand. So there was my time investment. But now I'm going, okay, so it took me 45 minutes to figure it out this morning. An hour later, it took me 10 minutes. But I was still nervous because I was actually putting into play, right? So knowing that you're going to improve your efficiency, there's going to be a learning curve. Your goal is to make sure that learning curve is fast and furious. So you're not spending too much time where you kind of repeat it over and over, right? Because ultimately, when you're talking your business, what is your goal with your business? Are you looking to kind of stay where you're at forever and a day? Are you looking at increasing your revenue, increasing your customer base? If you're looking to increase your revenue, if you're looking to grow your business, it's called scaling. You have to be efficient in almost everything you do, right? So it goes back to clarity of purpose, clarity of what your principles are and how you're achieving those, right? So the other piece, when you're looking at technology, we talked about that learning curve. It's not just for you, but it's for anybody that you work with. So I may have gotten it down in, from 45 minutes to 10 minutes. Next week, it might go back to 30 minutes, who knows? But for me to teach somebody else, I have to be willing to invest that time to teach anybody that I'm working with to be able to step in and do it as well and to be as efficient with it, right? So there's always going to be that training element as you're growing and scaling your business of making sure that everybody else is caught up to you and doing it as efficiently. So you want to keep that in mind. Sue brought up earlier innovation, right? So creative solutions, you need to be innovative. Why do you want to be innovative with coming up with solutions for your business to meet your customers where they are, to provide services and products? Innovation, yes, you're going to be ahead of the competition. You become that lead in your industry. You become that expert in your industry, right? It increases your brand representation. It also allows you to generate more leads than maybe somebody else. So how do we come up with creative solutions? Because we hear it all the time. It's like, oh, it's already been done, right? Innovation, yeah, right. How do we be innovative when there's that mindset that, oh, it's already been done? How am I ever really going to do it better, right? We kind of go back to our lovely Rubik's Cube, right? Shifting, turning, looking. What do we have that somebody else doesn't have that we can take a spin on what's already been created to make it our own, right? So you want to cultivate, that's that open mindset, thinking of things from a different perspective, being okay to opening a door that maybe we wouldn't have opened before. It's allocating time, which we just talked about, to making sure that we can do the research. And, and I tell my kids this all the time, right? They say, I kick them off technology or whatever, and they're going, I'm bored. Yeah. Through boredom, creativity will come. Give yourself the time and space to sit back and go, I don't know really what the solution is for this, but let's have a conversation with myself and I. Let's have a conversation with one of our friends, with a BFF, somebody that you actually work with, right? So through those conversations, you're able to start to have different language and a different view of the same situation and the same concept. So, and it has to be done regularly. And we talk about being consistent with our actions regarding our social media. We talk about it a lot. And it's the same thing, right? So allowing yourself time on a regular basis to sit back and say, what am I doing within my business that I could do better? Or I could do different? Or researching how other people are doing it and figuring out how you can do it better. You can create an easier solution, a simpler solution, right? So regularly reviewing and making that a priority. And again, we're like, this is all that underwater level of climbing your business's success, right? So what does that look like for you guys? If you were to do some research around innovation for your business, what would you be researching? What are some of the things that you'd want to know so you could start figuring out how you can do things that you're already doing better, or how you can do them different, and how you can improve upon what maybe somebody else is already doing? And there's always room for improvement, right? So think about it. Think about what are 2 or 3 things that you have competition around that you would want to know how how your competition is doing it, but that you can improve upon. And I'm going to give you an example, right? So in manufacturing, part of the reason people who have patents that they have a concern over having their product built in China, right? Because they're really good at? They do what's called reverse engineering. So one of my clients in Oregon, she created and she had got a patent approved, a system, sun protection system, and it was a hat and a veil. Like, she had this whole system for skin cancer patients to protect their skin and still be fashionable. So her system got a patent on it. And she started manufacturing it, still here in the US, but within 18 months, her product had been reverse engineered and changed just slightly enough that you started seeing it on Wish and Temu, right? And so she started to lose her competitive edge because now all the work she put into it is being undercut because somebody's reverse engineered it. So for you kind of want to take the same approach, right? In an ethical way, where you're looking at your competition and saying, okay, like they're doing this and I'm doing this. How do I do it differently? What are they doing that I'm not doing that I could do and improve upon, right? That's your research, your market research, your product development research. But you're not infringing if they've got patents or trademarks, right? You want to make sure you're still above board and ethical with those. So knowing that, you have to spend time, and that's why we were saying, right? You have to prioritize time investment into knowing who is out there. So building the Women's Business Resource Committee, right, the Village platform, I've spent the last year researching who else is out there doing and offering what I want to offer. Who are my competitors? What am I up against? What am I going to do different? How am I going to provide a different environment while still allowing them to do what they're doing, obviously, and support them, right? Like we want everybody to succeed. There's more than enough to go around, but you have to know who you're up against. You have to know what is the product or service they're providing that is very similar to yours, because you need to know what your unique selling proposition is, right? That USP. You don't know that unless you put the time and energy into researching your competitors. So talking about, right, we talked about leveraging technology. You have to know how to improve your efficiency, because if you can save time, it keeps you ahead of the competition. It allows you to spend more time doing product development, service development. It allows you more time to do the third topic, which is customer relations, right? Prioritizing customer relations. And what does that look and feel like for you? And how does that allow you to stand out against your competition? Right? Like I'm not the only one going live inside of Facebook groups. I'm not the only business coach. Right? I'm not the only one that does Reiki and craniosacral. But how do I make sure I'm staying out front? And for me, it's about meeting you here, providing these trainings, providing the tools and resources, right? Accessibility. So customer relations, what does that look like for you? If you were to look at your customers, your clients, what does your relationship with does it look like? Is there constant communication? Is there consistent communication? Regular communication? Are you emailing them? Are you direct messaging them? What's your portal look like when you have a customer come into your funnel or a potential customer? What does that relationship look like? How are you nurturing it? What is their journey? So for those of you that joined the group and you said, yes, I'd like to have that free resource, then you've given me your email. So I'm sending you the email with the direct download link. And then a few days later, you're getting a follow-up email with the link again, because I want to make sure you've got it. And then I follow up to, do you have any questions? Were you able to access the document okay? And then it's, what was your favorite right now? The giveaway, the workbook is the ChatGPT guide and prompt workbook. So What's your favorite prompt? How are you using AI? I want to know, right? I want to have conversations with each and every one of you that have said yes. Like you've given me a valuable piece of information, which is your email. I want to know. So I want to regularly communicate with you to make sure you're using the document that you requested. And if you have any questions, that I can answer them, right? What does your customer journey look like from the moment you meet them to the moment they may be done with your service or they purchase your product? What does the follow-up look like for each of them? And is it different if you have different products or different services? And again, this is still underneath that waterline of the iceberg, right? This understanding that journey. And a few weeks ago, I pointed out my sticky notes on the wall and shared with you, like, this is, when I'm looking at customer journeys and product development, like I've got sticky notes on the wall and I'm like changing them around because I'm not sure if I like the process. I'm not sure if I like the content, et cetera, right? So I have that visual as a constant reminder. What are my clients? What are my potential clients going through? So it's still being perfected on your end. And Maria, to be very honest, and this is for everybody, just not Maria, your client journey will never be perfect, right? Adapting and staying competitive means the journey that your customers are on are going to need to be adapted. You get it established, but you are reviewing it and ensuring that it is still meeting the needs and filtering through those brand principles and giving your customer, your potential customer, the information that they not just need, but want. Right? So a lot of people say, yes, I want that ChatGPT workbook, and they get it, and then they immediately unsubscribe because that's all they wanted. They don't want any other interaction, right? And that's okay because they still got what they wanted. So for you, Maria, it's being perfected. Embrace the idea that you're not going for perfection. You're going for an implementation of a customer journey to nurture the relationship, to enhance the relationship, to improve, obviously, sales, right? Upsell them, share with them, educate them on what else they can be doing to be working with you. If product A isn't the right solution, then maybe product B is, right? So you're always wanting to refine, what does that customer journey look like? Does that make sense, Maria? And the other piece with the customer relationship is getting feedback, right? We can do all of this work. Yes. Oh, good. Okay. That was helpful. Excellent. Right. So we can do all of this work. We can automate and improve our efficiency, and we can start to scale our business, and we can improve our brand representation and our ability to, generate leads. We can do all this. We can share our unique sales proposition. But if we don't get feedback, how do we know what to tweak and change and adapt? So the final element is for you to figure out how to gain feedback from those that are in your business circle, customers, clients, potential customers, right? Getting feedback so that way you can say, oh, this is really working. This isn't. Now I'm going to adapt, and I'm going to then adopt it and implement it, right? So what are some of the ways you can gain feedback from your network, from your group, AKA all of those people that are in either on your newsletter list? When you're asking people for feedback and they said they would give you feedback and haven't done it yet, can you ask again? Absolutely. Yeah. So what you might have to do is look at the questions you're asking, right? What? Because people are only gonna, if you say, can you give me feedback? And they say yes, that was all you asked them. So what is the question you're asking? Right? So if you're asking them a yes or no question, they say yes, they've done the job. They've answered your question, right? So Maria, give me an example of a question when you want feedback. What question are you asking? Are you asking them, can you give me feedback? Or is it a different question? I'm going to give her a second because what I realize is from my Zoom to the Facebook Live, there is a delay. So, and that goes for all of you. Like if you're looking for feedback from people, if you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right feedback. And you want to remember, you don't want yes men, as they say. You don't want to ask questions that are only going to elicit positive, for them to only be able to say positive things. You want to be able to, for them to be honest, right? So I'll give you a minute, Maria, and then we can see if we can help you restructure your questions. Anybody else have feedback? I asked someone for feedback on a translation project that I have helped in the past so that I can add to the portfolio. Okay, so what was the exact question? Did you just ask them for feedback? Can you give me feedback on it? We'll give her a second. All right, what are you doing when you're asking? Yes, okay. So what we need to do is tweak the question you're asking, right? Because if you give them, that for that person, and I can't speak for them, but I'm going to guess, I'm going to kind of jump into their mind for a second. I'm going to guess that I've had your translation project and I need to give you feedback. I don't know what you're looking for. You want feedback, but I don't know what you want as far as feedback. Do you want me just to say it was good? So it might be where now that they've said, yeah, we'll give you feedback, they might be overwhelmed and they don't know direction. So you need to tell them what to tell you. So say you can now follow up with, hey, and I'll just use Sue's name because I know she's here, right? Hey, Sue, I'm so glad you wanted to give me feedback on the translation project. I just realized I never sent you, some questions for you to answer that would be helpful for me. Here's my 5 questions. If you could answer these 5 questions in relation to that translation project, it would be really helpful for me. And then Sue's going to go, oh, okay, great. So I'm going to answer this question. And I'm going to answer this question. And then she's going to send you those answers. But if you don't tell them what they need to tell you, then 9 times out of 10, they won't take that next step because they don't know how to respond. And I'm going to be honest, they will likely say, oh, I forgot, to kind of cover themselves. Oh, thanks for the reminder. I completely forgot. So just so you know, like yeah. So your follow-up now would be, hey, here's some questions I'd love your answers to. And so my question now for you, Maria, is this a standard practice for you with all your translation projects or clients that you send them? Yeah, yes, they will. Right? Do you send them a follow-up survey after every translation project, whether they're a repeat customer or not? Is that part of your process? We're going to give her a second because this is going to take us back to that number 1, leveraging technology, right? Understanding it is something that I will be adding. So at the moment, it's not part of your process. So now what Maria's done is she's like going, oh, I can solicit feedback every single time I work with a customer, even repeat customers. And this goes for all of you, even product-based individuals, right? If you have if you're making products, right? So I think I saw Kimberly. Did I see Kimberly on here? Right. So she makes these gorgeous candles and, dried pressed flower products. She can be sending follow-up, 2 or 3 question surveys to all of her customers after they purchase and say, hey, how was your delivery? How was the product received? Was it packaged okay? Right? Like super easy, simple questions. And it can be automated through your customer relation management system, right? Your CRM. So now I'm going to go back to the bottom so I can see the comments. Right? So no matter where you're at with your customers or your small business, whether it be an idea or you're looking to scale it, gaining this feedback on a consistent basis will only allow you to keep improving. And guess what else it does? It sets you apart from your competition because you're interested in knowing how you can improve. Yeah, we all are, Maria. She just said like she's still learning about CRMs. We all are because they keep changing. So, right? So an example, so I'm consulting right now with MailChimp, right? The Intuit CRM, and we meet monthly, and it's all about, because I've been using MailChimp for almost 15 years, right? So what they want my input on is how they can improve the user interface of not just their email journeys, but their texting, the SMS, right? So they're soliciting feedback. And they're a big company, right? Like Intuit bought MailChimp, what was it, 3 years ago now, right? I mean, they're big and they've got deep pockets. And this is like they're investing in feedback because it's that important for them to stay what? Ahead of the competition of all the other CRMs that are implementing SMS, right? Oh, Maria, you are so not alone. You're in great company. So think about that, right? So if you can't get the feedback easily, then you need to figure out how you can. And consistently, again, right? We come back to being consistent. Everything's about consistency. All right. So staying competitive allows us to stay out of survival and into thriving. It gives us clarity of purpose. We know we want to leverage technology to improve our efficiency so we're not spinning our wheels, and we can look at scaling our business. We want to be looking at creative solutions, increasing our brand rep, staying innovative, right? Allows us to then improve our lead generation because we stand out. Customer relations allows us brand loyalty, gaining feedback. What questions do you guys have for me before we kind of wrap things up? And I'm using my Ani mug this morning. Okay. So no questions? All right, so now I've got my fingers crossed that when I end the Zoom, that the Zoom recording will have closed captions as well. It's my next big thing. I had it turned on, so we'll see. All right. No questions? You guys are all good? I haven't overwhelmed you, got you into thinking mode. Okay. Awesome. Yes, you're welcome, Maria. Yes, your homework cut out. And you're welcome. So if you don't know, Krista's my sister. She's amazing. And she just joined us. She is, well, she'll do an intro post and introduce herself. So you'll be able to meet her. Um, and I was, you're welcome, Sue. And hopefully all of you guys had a great Mother's Day weekend, even if it's a four-legged Mother's Day weekend. You're all mothers in my heart because you are birthing these amazing businesses. Thinking mode on, Maria. Absolutely. Um, perfect. So I wish you all a beautiful Tuesday. I will for sure see you next week, Tuesday morning. And